This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, we had a chance to talk to Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois from Quebec Solidaire. I want you to hear part of what he had to say when we talked about Bill 96, because we know, of course, QS is supporting that bill. And here's what he said about the French language.
I am honestly not worried for the future of English around the world. It's a pretty dominant language. French is more threatened in Quebec, and I think it's legitimate for the Quebec society to say we are going to put rules to make sure that French keeps on thriving in Quebec while respecting the rights of the Anglophone minority.
Which is, of course, a false equivalency. He happened to say he's not worried about English around the rest of the world. He didn't say he's not worried about English in Quebec. So,
well, no, of course not. I mean, yeah, that's the political orthodoxy here in Quebec, right? I mean, we are the best treated minority in the world. How dare we pipe up about things like, a law that bulldozes its way into the education system, a law that will bulldoze its way into your personal life. If you're suspected by a language cop of having violated Bill 96, well, they can check your phone, they can check your computer, and they don't need a warrant. Yeah. This is the most illegal law. I'm amazed, actually, that Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, who normally has pretty good radar when it comes to social justice, is sort of like sitting back and saying, this is cool, this is fine. On the other hand, he's probably, watching which way the wind is going to blow, because for now, the manufactured language crisis, courtesy of Québécois and its utterly unscientific polls, it's shrieking columnists who are basically saying, and yes, I will use that little stockade analogy again, les colons sont entourés par les Anglais, and by everybody else. We have to protect ourselves because we're going to lose everything, our identity, our language, whatever. It's absolute rubbish, okay? The Quebecers, Francophone Quebecers, all Quebecers have a zillion other things on their mind rather than what language you can be educated when you're in CEGEP. But yeah, even guys like Nadeau-Dubois have to watch their P's and Q's simply because there's an election campaign on. And believe me, we don't have a wide bandwidth to cover elections anymore. We can't look at all the issues. So we're going to look at the sexy ones, the clickable ones. Language happens to be one of those things. It'll be interesting to see if someone goes up to Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois next week after Sunday's rally in Montreal. And I've said it's going to depend on the turnout, and see whether he feels the same way, or perhaps that there might be a small crack in that bubble that says, everything's fine. I'm not worried about English around the world. I'm not worried about English around the world either. And I, for one, would not want to live in a Quebec that didn't have French. It's part of the history. It is part of the identity. It's part of the culture. But these ridiculous pastiche of legislation, these basic grievances, which are turned into regulations, they've got no place in 21st century Quebec. And the worst thing about this is even people like Francois Legault know this perfectly well. But right now, Francois Legault is trying to hoover up as many votes as he can, and this seems, for the moment, to be the way to do it.
Okay. By the way, I asked a question as we wrapped up the interview with him about this situation in Mount Royal where Michel Sedlacqui came out and said, I'm against Bill 96, I'm against Bill 21, I don't fear bilingualism. And when the Legault, of course, tweeted out that she was an anti-nationalist because of it, he kind of laughed that off. He said, so maybe Quebec Solidaire is anti-nationalist too. They don't agree with Bill 21 either. So kind of interesting take.
I don't understand, and someone as sharp as Nadeau-Dubois, and I'm not making a false equivalency here, whether it's Bill 21 or Bill 96, never mind the fine print, they're both illegal. They're so illegal they had to have the notwithstanding clause built into them. And the question you have to ask yourself, is this the kind of country, or if you prefer, nation, that you want to live in? Because frankly, as I've said months ago, the door has been opened now to undercutting or eliminating other rights. Maybe not by this government, but by the next one. The precedent is there, and it's a very, very dangerous one.
I keep wondering what it's going to take for people to see the real Francois Legault, to see that they're being manipulated. What's this latest thing? So he's trying to woo mayors now? He's trying to...
Well, yeah, I mean, there's an election campaign on. Mayors have been crying for years to have the same rights as the city of Montreal, which is the right.
Hello, Jim.
And it's a smart one to have, simply because, if you've got territory in your municipality that somebody wants to put up for sale, you are the first person they have to deal with. You are, the city is can say, no, we don't want to buy it, or if we do want to buy it, you got to sell it. Simple as that. And if you're feeling rather saucy, you could refer to that to a certain degree as premature expropriation. That said, all things being equal, even Legault is saying, I'm going to streamline the expropriation process to make it easier for you guys to get more land to develop on. All of this, of course, in anticipation of the housing, or more accurately, inexpensive housing crisis, which is hitting Quebec just as hard as any other part of the English-speaking world. So yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, it really is. It is politics. It's just straight up electioneering. Legault was in front of the Quebec Union of Municipalities today, and he threw them a bone. Will he actually follow through? We shall see. But it's interesting because the PQ, as he was saying this, said, we have actually tabled legislation giving this power to municipalities. And why don't you just adopt that rather than taking time to write your own? Because let's face it, the session's over on June 10th. So the clock is ticking here. But yeah, he's trying to win over the municipalities, some of whom have been downright uppity in their criticism of the CAQ government and of Premier Legault, between his tunnel, between his cabinet minister saying that, the densification, this is a terrible word in English, but keeping development going up rather than out, avoiding urban sprawl, is just a fad. Legault actually seemed to have disavowed that nice Francois Bonnardel today. But all that said, we shall see, because the CAQ has been known to say one thing one week and do another something else.
I don't recall that. Jim, we would be remiss,
debate.
I think, if we didn't ask you about the debate that was on last night between the Conservative leaders and what you thought.
It was embarrassing. Yeah. It was embarrassing. It was an insult, as far as I'm concerned, to the Conservatives in this country, who are looking for a political vehicle that doesn't involve bringing donuts to the squatters in Ottawa last February. I sat through every second of that. There were several things that I noticed. Pro tip, one, you want to have a dignified debate, avoid sound effects. Two, you could walk into that debate at any time, okay? The first rule was Quebec is like Fight Club. Nobody mentions Quebec, all right? Even though everyone's screeching about freedom and liberty, okay? The idea of the laws I just referred to, not a word, not even a question, not a reference to Quebec, apart from the fact that Jean Charest used to be the premier here. Oh, yes, and the next Fun Fest debate will be held in Laval, Quebec. It was awful.
Yeah,
in fact, you could have walked into that thing at any point and, honest to God, thought you were interrupting a debate among oil company shareholders. It was about deep water ports in the Arctic. It was promoting resources, energy, whatever. I realize you're playing to an audience in Edmonton. Newsflash, guys, okay? Edmonton's not going to win you a national election. And in fact, my takeaway was, if any of the people on that stage, including Charest, thought last night they're going to replace the sitting government, it's only going to happen if the entire Liberal caucus falls over and gives itself a coma after laughing so hard at the highlights of the debates thus far.
I'm with you, pal. Natasha and I both sort of felt the same way. We were texting back and forth. It was in fact, embarrassing is a good word. That's how I felt it was from the get-go.
Amateur
it's
hour.
Unfair.
Yeah.
If this is the voice of conservatism, I can think of a lot of conservatives, small C conservatives, who are just going to, go live on a mountaintop, because it ain't happening in this country, and this is not. What we saw last night was not conservatism. It was, how can I put it, a restrained form of populism, which will be a lot less restrained if somebody except for maybe Charest, if anybody on that stage gets into power.
James MENNIE, over at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adam.